interesting session of ancient Jainism. And today we'll be having a very interesting lecture of Nikita Singh. So before we start, let me give a brief introduction about our initiative, Ancient Jainism. Ancient Jainism is an initiative to spread awareness about Jain history, Jain culture, Jain religion, Jain art, and many interesting facets of Jain history and tradition. And for this, we organize regular lectures where we invite some of the greatest scholars of this field, as well as many budding scholars who are greatly contributing to this field, like Nikita. And we just hope you all you all remain connected with us, and you can get more future updates about the events from our Instagram page and YouTube. So you can follow our page and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So let me tell us about the session. Our topic will be on the Jain art and archaeology of the ChottaNagpur region, and we have Nikita Singh with us, and she has done a very good study, and she has been working on the Jain archaeological remains of the ChottaNagpur region, and she has contextualized them to have a broader picture about Jainism in this region. And first of all, welcome, Nikita. Thank you for agreeing for this program.
Thank you, Anchit, for the kind introduction.
And no, I will first introduce about you. Nikita is my senior and a very great human being, and I'm very glad she has joined us. And she has interest in history, and she is doing PhD from the same supervisor as me, Professor Parul Pandyadhar. And apart from interest in history, she has interest in art, archaeology, ethnography, religious history, art history, and her interdisciplinary approach gets reflected in her work also. So she has done a very great MPhil titled Understanding the Religious Landscape of Chota Nagpur Plateau, an archaeological exploration of Ranchi. And she has done some very interesting works like on the cult of Sholabhuji Devi
Yeah.
Sholabhuji Devi at Jharkhand, on the early medieval temples of Chota Nagpur region, etc. And she has worked as assistant professor, guest at the very prestigious Hindu College of Delhi University and also the Janki Devi Memorial College. And she has received travel grants from Indian Council of Historical Research as well as junior research fellowship from the Union Grant Commission. She works as freelance writer, and she not only studies art but herself has a very great artistic inclination, and she has shown her like Madhubani works, and she is fantastic. So without delaying, I would like to welcome Nikita, and I just hope we'll have a great session with you. All the best.
Thank you, Anchit, for the kind introduction again. And good evening, everyone. So I'm Nikita, as Anchit already has mentioned, that I'm working as a PhD research scholar at the Department of History, University of Delhi, and I'm looking forward to this session. So without any further delay, I'll just dive into the topic. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Do let me know when it's visible, okay? I'll just just a second. Just a second, okay? Is it visible? Yeah, is the
Yes,
screen visible?
it's visible. Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So, as the title is visible on the screen, I'll be talking about the Jain art of Chota Nagpur region, and the period that I've selected for this discussion is 7th century to 13th century CE, which we can call the early medieval period in the historical parlance. Okay, so when we talk about regions, we need to understand regions as a part of whole and not the whole itself. So when I say this, Romila Thapar has very beautifully talked about regions and its importance in her book titled Cultural Past, Studying the Konkan Region. So deriving from her, I would like to state that regions, when we talk about any region for that matter, be it Deccan or the Vengi or the ChottaNagpur for that matter, if we take up any region, they are not isolated islands. Okay, there are wider linkages. Then we have interactions, and over a period of time, these interactions and linkages actually lead to the making of a cultural space. Okay, so and regions also are not homogeneous. I must emphasize on that. We have sub-regions, we have localities which interact, and there are exchanges and various processes which actually leads to the making of cultural space. And today I'll be talking about one such cultural region of Chota Nagpur, which was very much a part of the larger circuit of Eastern India. So when you see on the screen, as I've displayed on the screen, this is the Chota Nagpur region on the map of India. Okay, and if I zoom in, this is the particular, this map actually defines the boundary of Chota Nagpur region. Okay, so Chota Nagpur, it is quite different from its neighboring areas. Okay, it is a highland backdrop to the middle and the lower sections of the Gangetic Valley, that is Bihar and West Bengal. And it marks the northeastern peninsular block of the Indian subcontinent. As I've already, as much must be visible from the map, it covers much of Jharkhand state, as well as adjacent parts of Odisha, West Bengal, and Chhattisgarh. And the core of Chota Nagpur is actually formed by the Palamu, Ranchi, Hazaribagh, Singhbum, and the Santhal Pargana district. Okay, so these are the core areas, and there are certain fringe areas which lie on the eastern part, which is formed by the Purulia, Bankura, Bardhaman district. So these were also very much part of the Chota Nagpur region. Now, why did I select this particular region? Okay, so when I was going through the various archaeological records and the exploration and the excavation activities that have been undertaken in this particular region, what becomes prominent is a long cultural sequence from the prehistoric times to this particular period. From prehistoric to the early medieval, and that goes up to the medieval period. Okay, and the remains that we find that are in the form of abandoned temple complexes. If we talk about early medieval in particular, okay, so we have abandoned temple complexes. Some are still in active worship. Then we have architectural fragments, sculptural remains, and these archaeological relics actually are the best signifiers of the early medieval socio-cultural milieu. Okay, and Jain art is actually a very important component of these archaeological relics of this period. So when I'll show you the immense amount of archaeological remains that is present in this period, it becomes very apparent that this particular part of India was actually a thriving Jain center for a considerable time during the early medieval period. Hence, the study of Jain art becomes very important. And I should not miss the point that this region encompasses not just Jain remains. We have medley of faiths over here. By medley of faiths, I mean that we have remains of Jainism, Buddhism, and Brahmanism. And the amount of remains, the sculptural or architectural fragments and remains that we find in this region are at par with each other. We cannot say like we have lesser amount of Jain remains or we have a greater amount of Buddhist remains. So that is the primary reason for taking up this region, and also specifically talking about Jain art of this region. Okay. Now, when we talk about ChottaNagpur, so the formative years of exploration in this particular region was taken up during the time of during the colonial period by the British administrators like Alexander Cunningham, J.D. Begler, who has almost written a magnus opus on Eastern India, talking about all these small sites associated with this particular region and giving us details of each and every sites, the number of temples, the number of architectural fragments and remains that we come across in this period. Now, these colonial records, if we look at, are very descriptive in nature and are important source books as well. Okay, why do I use the term source book? Because they act as a valuable archive. So when we look at these source books, first of all, we get the details of various sites, and when at times when we visit these sites, okay, there are instances when I have visited a particular site, and the number of remains, or for that matter architectural fragments that have been reported by Begler, are not present at the site. So this is because maybe because of theft, lack in preservation and conservation, maybe the sculptures have been moved to some other place, maybe they have been taken to the museum. So these particular records actually form an important source book if we want to study the archaeology art of this particular region in detail. Now, when we talk about visual representation or art objects in general, scholars have argued that अगर हम किसी मूर्ति को देखते हैं, तो it is not necessarily कि वो एक जो उसको बना रहा है उसका ही एक्सप्रेशन है वहां, आर्टिस्टिक एक्सप्रेशन. It was actually influenced by the one who commissioned the making of that art object, and hence these art objects must be studied in the background of the political setup and also the cultural taste and social setting of that time period. Okay, so you cannot study the art objects also in isolation. They must be contextualized, they must be understood depending they must be understood according to the political setup of that region. Okay, now छोटा नागपुर की अगर हम बात करते हैं, तो यहाँ पे जितने भी रिमेन्स मिलते हैं, रिमेन्स दैट वी कम अक्रॉस आर नॉट नेसेसरली एसोसिएटेड विद स्ट्रक्चरल रिमेन्स. स्ट्रक्चरल रिमेन्स, बाय स्ट्रक्चरल रिमेन्स आई मीन नॉट नेसेसरली कि अगर हमें मूर्तियां मिल रही हैं तो वहां पे नेसेसरली एक मंदिर होगा, वहां पे एक कॉम्प्लेक्स होगा या मोनास्टिक सेटलमेंट हमें वहां पे मिला होगा, ऐसी जरूरी नहीं है. हमें कई बार ऐसे स्कल्पचर्स हमें बहुत छोटे छोटे गांव में मिले हैं, या फिर by the river side, and these are referred to as loose sculptures in archaeological parlance. Okay, so my approach is to understand the spread of these cultural images in order to in order to understand the early medieval iconographic landscape of Chota Nagpur region, and this will itself give us a glimpse into the religious life of the people at the margins. And so this is the primary approach of this particular this is the approach that I have used in studying the sculptural remains of the region. Now, talking about Jain sculptures, there are few certain distinguishing features associated with a Jain figure. Okay, so whenever you look at the Tirthankar image, for that matter, you'll always notice long arms. There's always a Srivats mark at the chest. There are other characteristics as well, like the 8 pratiharyas. These are the 8 auspicious symbols, like we have a trilinear chhatra at the top of the Tirthankar, then we have Vidyadhar images, then we have we have a throne, we have the lion throne depiction. So there are certain characteristics specifically associated with Tirthankar iconography. Okay, and then we have the images of Yaksha and Yakshi associated with that particular Tirthankar, which are depicted in the pedestal of the Tirthankar image. Fine. Now, Talking particularly of this region, what we find here are Tirthankar images, obviously. Then we have Yaksha, Yakshi images, separate images that we come across in this region. Then we have Chaumukhas. Chaumukhas क्या होते हैं? ये votive duels होते हैं, as in ये miniature form of temples होते हैं, जिनको चौमुखा इसलिए बोला जाता है कि क्योंकि on all the four faces we have representations of Tirthankar. Okay, so these are known as Chaumukha or auspicious from all the sides. Okay, so these are the types of sculptural remains that we come across in this region. Now, talking about Tirthankar, the general representation is of Mahavir. Then we have Parashvanath images, we have Chandraprabha, Shantinath, Mallinath, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are a few general Jain remains that we come across in this region. Now, talking about the Tirthankar iconography. So there are certain types of Tirthankar images also evidenced in this area. सबसे पहले अगर बात करेंगे तो single depiction of Tirthankar. Then we have Dvitirthika images. Dvitirthika images is we have a image of Tirthankar and we have two other Tirthankar images in the back slab. Then we have Panchtirthika. We have Chaubisi sculptures representing 24 Tirthankars in the back slab. Then we have Tirthankars accompanied by planetary deities like the Navgrahas. Okay. And then again, we have Tirthankar with Dikpala representation. Okay. Dikpalas are represented in the back slab. So the first image that I've taken for this session is this particular Rishabhnath image from the Singhbhum region of Jharkhand. Okay, it is presently housed in the State Museum of Ranchi. So when you look at this image, at least when I look at this particular image, I find it very beautiful, firstly. Secondly, a point that I'd like to make that जब तीर्थंकर images की बात आती है तो दो तरीके के तीर्थंकर images होते हैं, एक कयोत्सर्ग मुद्रा और एक ध्यान आसन. So this one particularly is कयोत्सर्ग mudra. Okay, because you see the Tirthankar standing with his hands on both his sides touching his thighs. So this is the Kayotsar mudra of a Jain Tirthankar representation. Okay. From this particular image, it becomes very apparent that the Mulanayak or Rishabhnath is in the Kayotsarg mudra and is standing on a Panchratha pedestal. So here you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projections. Hence, it is a Panchratha pedestal, and he's standing on a double petaled lotus. Okay, so how do we know that it is a Rishabhnath image? Okay, first is the representation of bull in the central projection of the pedestal. Okay, here you see the representation of a bull. So when we look at the Tirthankar images, we come to know that this is the image of Parshvanath or Rishabhnath looking at the chinhas which are made at the base of the pedestal. So since we have a bull here who is a cognizance of Rishabhnath, so we know it is a image depicting Rishabhnath. Fine. And also because we see falling hair locks. Rishabhnath is one Tirthankara in whose depiction, iconography, we often see the representation of hair locks or the Kesavalari falling up to his shoulders. Okay, now getting into the detail of this particular image, since the face is completely damaged, we cannot have an idea of the facial expression. But what we see is a very beautiful jata mukut that Rishabhnath is wearing, and we have an elliptical Sirsh chakra. The outer rim is depicted by these symmetrical flames moving out, and then the inner one has beads. Okay, And if we go at the top of the slab, we have the trilinear chhatra represented over here. So I talked about the 8 pratiharyas, and this is one of them. So we have a trilinear chhatra representation over here. Then on both sides, we have the disembodied hands playing cymbals and drums. Okay, this is also one of the auspicious symbols. And we have the Vidyadhar images holding garlands in their hand. So these are very common elements which you will find throughout the length and breadth of India when we talk about Jain image representation. Okay, what is striking here are these 24 Tirthankar images that is depicted in the back slab. So you'll see that they are arranged in 4 horizontal rows with three Tirthankar in each row on both the sides. All of these are standing in Kayotsar mudra like the Mulanayak, and we have the depiction of their cognizances or their chinhas at the base, which obviously is not visible in this particular image because the image, the sculpture is actually a bit degraded. So that is why we cannot make out the chinhas over here. Then we have chowri bearers over here on both the sides of Tirthankar. Okay, the face has been damaged, but we know for that matter with certain that they are holding the fly whisk because Tirthankar image is always followed by 2 chowri bearers. Okay, and here on the right side and on the left side, we have the representation of Ashtgrahas. Okay, the Ashtgrahas, which are this is one of the most common representation that we come across in the eastern India or ChottaNagpur region in particular. So on this side we have Surya, Mangal, Brihaspati, and Sani, and on the left side we have Som, Budh, Shukra, and Rahu. Rahu is usually over here. Rahu is usually represented with a very big head and the eyes protruding, and we have a charged representation of the hair. So we have all the Ashtgrahas represented over here. Now, when you look at this particular image of Tirthankara, we see that it is very slender, though the body has been a bit damaged over the period of time, but looks very slender, and the carving is very sophisticated. For that matter, if you look at the throne represented at the back, we have this crossbar with all these designs, and then we have the bell hanging over here, which is a common element in this particular area. Okay, so this was about the Mulanayak and the back slab. Coming down to the pedestal. In the central projection, we see the representation of the bull, and on the outer projection, we see devotees kneeling and folding their arms. Okay, so this is also a common representation that we find in this region of the kneeling devotees, or maybe we could call them donors. Okay, I'll go on to elaborate on that as we move further in the lecture. So here we have kneeling devotees, and here we have 2 crouching lions moving out of the pedestal and showing their backs to each other. So this is how I'll describe this particular Rishabhnath image from East Singhbhum, and stylistically it can be placed somewhere around 10th century. Now, moving.
Nikita.
Okay, so in the previous slide, I discussed in detail the image, the iconography of this particular Rishabhnath image from East Singhbhum region, which I placed somewhere around 10th century on the stylistic affiliation. Okay, now I'll talk about this very interesting figure of Shantinath, and this is from the Dhalbhum region of East Singhbhum, Jharkhand again. Okay, so looking at this image, here the representation of Jaina again is very slender. It is in Kayut Sarga posture again, like the previous slide, and he's standing on a lotus double lotus placed on a Panchratha pedestal again. Now, before talking about the iconography of the Mulanayak or Shantinath, I'll first discuss the pedestal, which to me is very interesting. Okay, so here I have made certain circles in order to mark mark the specificities. So when you look at the pedestal, in the center, we find a deer, hence the sculpture is of Shantinath, okay, because deer is the symbol of Shantinath. Fine. Then again, the usual representation of kneeling deity, kneeling devotee, sorry, with the hands folded, okay. I think somebody is writing... Okay, so yeah, so we have a kneeling devotee, and then we have two crouching lions over here. What is interesting is this particular image of a Jain Acharya in Yogasan posture depicted in the corner projection. Okay, and here again we have a devotee probably folding hands and paying obeisance to this particular acharya. Okay, and so this was a very interesting figure of interesting representation from this region that I came across. Now talking about the Mulanayak. So in the previous, while talking about the previous slide, I said how in the depiction of Rishabhnath, he's usually represented with the falling hair locks up to shoulder. Here you see that those hair locks is missing. Okay, and it is very neatly tied into an Ushnisha. Okay, here you see a bun sort of thing that has been created and the hair is beautifully tied. Okay, so and we have long earlobes. The Jaina is completely devoid of worldly attires. We have a beautiful Ushnisha, sorry, Sirsha Chakra at the back of the Jaina. We have a beautiful throne being depicted here in this image. Then again, we talk about the trilinear chhatra. Then we have the disembodied hands playing drums. And here you can see the Vidyadhar images very clearly flying on both the corners, having garland in their hand. Okay, so in the previous image, the Vidyadhars were not very clearly represented. Now, what is unique again here is the representation of the Ashtgrahas over here in this particular image. You can see all the 8 grahas have been represented, 4 on the right side and 4 on the left side, starting from Surya and ending with Rahu. Again, here you can see that the image of Rahu wherein he has a big head, and Surya is usually in the Padmasan, and all the others are depicted in Ardha Paryank Mudra, and they all have their symbols symbol in their hand. When we look at the Chowri bearers here, in the previous image, these were also not very clearly visible. So here you see that they are standing in Katyavlambita posture. By Katyavlambita, I mean that they have their hands placed by their thighs, and they are holding fly whisks in their hand. Okay, and also they are very beautifully ornamented and clothed. They have those armlets, then they are wearing kamarband, inhone mukut bhi pehen rakha hai. So here you see a very beautiful depiction of the Chowri bearers as well. And also we have Ratna Patras, wherein these are the depictions of offerings, okay, being made to the Tirthankar. So we have representation of Ratna Patras also in this particular sculpture, which was not in the previous one. Okay, one interesting figure is over here in the left hand corner of the sculpture is this particular image. It is in a very bad condition, but scholars, those who have studied this particular image, are of the opinion that this might have been the Yakshi of the Tirthankar, because when we look at the images of Tirthankar, we find the representation of respective Yaksha and Yakshi. Yakshas are represented on the right side of the back slab, lower corner, right lower corner, and Yakshis on the left side. So probably this was the Yakshi of Shantinath, which is Maha Manasi Yakshi. Okay, so this is probably the representation of the Yakshi of Shantinath. So, having discussed all the important aspects of this particular image, I'll now move on to a very unique representation of Malinath also from this region. So, we do not find a lot of Malinath representations in this region. There are 2 or 3 till now reported, and this is one of them from the Purulia district of West Bengal. ओके सो जब हम मलीनाथ की बात करते हैं तो इसके ऊपर काफी ज्यादा डिबेट है कि मलीनाथ जो थे वो जो तीर्थंकर थे वेदर ही वाज अ फीमेल और वो मली कुमारी या फिर फीमेल थी। ज्यादातर ओपिनियन श्वेतांबर्स में ये है कि मलीनाथ फीमेल थी और दिगंबर्स में कि वो मेल है, बट सिंस वी हैव अ मेल रिप्रेजेंटेशन ओवर हियर and obviously this is a digambar representation because we do not see any kind of clothing. So ये दिगंबर representation है और ये मलीनाथ है। And how do we know that this particular depiction is of Malinath? Because of the presence of jar, which is the cognizance of Malinath. Okay, now when we look at this particular image, again we have this Panchratha pedestal, we have the lotus on which the Tirthankar is standing. And then the most important aspect of this particular image is the representation of Jain acharyas. Here in the this particular image, you can very clearly see the depiction of Jain acharyas on both the sides of the Tirthankar. Okay, and here we have the sthapna or the wooden stand. Okay, wooden stand covered with a cloth. And when we look at the acharyas also, we see that the right hand is in Abhaya Mudra and the left hand actually is shown holding some kind of a cloth, or maybe I'm not sure what exactly it is, but this is a very unusual representation in this area because जब हमने वो शांतिनाथ का जो स्कल्पचर देखा था उसमें आचार्य डिपिक्टेड थे in the corner projections, but here we have it in the projection adjacent to the central projection. Okay, then so hence this pedestal becomes very important in understanding the iconography of this region. When we talk about the representation of acharyas, this type of imagery was very much prevalent in the Deoghar region of Madhya Pradesh, and Klaus Brun has talked in detail about the depiction of Jain acharyas and monks in the Jain iconography of that particular region. Okay, so this was something that struck me as well, and thought worthy of bringing it over here. And now talking about the remaining portion of the back slab. Again, we have the Ashtagrahas being depicted in the back slab, the Vidyadhar images. Then we have Chauri bearers. Again, you can see that they are beautifully ornamented. They have kamarband, they have a mukut, they are holding the flyweights. And also important to note here is the representation of this Ratnapatras over here between the Tirthankar and the Chauri bearers, which I have not noticed in this area, but this is the only image which at least I came across wherein the Ratnapatras were depicted over here. And talking about the elongated hands of the Jain Tirthankars that are represented here, you can see very clearly the elongated hand and palm, which actually symbolizes Jain Tirthankars iconography of this period. Okay, so this we have a Sheesh beautifully designed Sheesh. The upper part of the back slab is unfortunately lost, the trilinear chhatra, but we have the depiction of the throne of this in this image. Okay, so just a second. Okay, when we talk about the planetary deities or the representation of Navgrahas in this region, Gerd Mavison has has studied this particular aspect in great details, and he talks about how the representation of Navgrahas, as we can see over here, started from somewhere around 6th century in the Brahmanical context, and we find these representation in the Jain iconography from somewhere around 7th 8th century. And probably the first earliest example that comes from the from Rajgir in the Nalanda region of Bihar of Neminath image. Okay, so he has tried to understand the coming of these Navgraha images, Navgraha imagery in the Brahmanical deities iconography as well as in the Jain iconography, and he states that the representation of Navgrahas can be found in the regions of ChottaNagpur and Bengal from somewhere around 9th 10th century. Okay, so we have a lot of depictions of Navgrahas. तीन तो मैंने अभी आपको खुद दिखाया कि there are 3 images from Rishabhnath to Shantinath, then we have Malinath. The Navgrahas are very much present in all the 3 sculptures that I have shown. Now, the representation of Ashtagrahas are usually either they are vertically arranged or they are horizontally arranged. In Bengal, we find the vertical arrangement mostly, but the arrangement is as such that Surya is over here and then we have Agni. So one over here, second over here, third over here, fourth over here. Okay, so it's a mix and match representation that we see in this particular region. Now, so these were few specificities associated, which I believe is associated with this region. And here again is a beautiful image of Chandraprabha, again from Purulia district. When you look at this particular image, you see it's almost like a mini temple. Okay, so you have Chandraprabha here in middle. You know that it is Chandraprabha because we have a moon depiction, a crescent moon over here, and it is so beautifully decorated. You have an amlak, then you have the Tirthankar images, the Chaubisi representation. Then again we have the Navgrahas represented over here. And one interesting figure is the representation of Indra over here. Okay, and he is on his Vahan, the elephant. Okay, so the representation of Indra, and it was probably to maintain the symmetry. Okay, so he was probably included in this particular iconography to maintain the symmetry. Here I have shown the arrangement of the Tirthankar, the Navgrahas in this particular sheet. So, my opinion taken, I consider this as to be one of the most beautiful imagery of a Tirthankar that we come across in this region. Okay, now, when we talk about ChottaNagpur region, ancient Manbhum region is of primary importance, and it is probably known as the golden circuit or orbit of Jainism. Okay, so most of the images that have been studied are from this particular region itself, the ancient Manbhum region, which comprises of the Singhbhum region, Purulia, Bankura. Okay, so I will take up few sculptures from this region. The first being that of Chandra Prabha, and it is from the Sakara or the Sankara region. Okay, so it is not that good imagery as I have shown in the previous slides, but it is a representation of Chandraprabha, and I know it because we have a crescent moon over here. We have the very animated Chowri bearers over here. We do not see much on the back slab. We have a Sheesh Chakra, we have the throne, the Tirthankar is standing in a Kayot Sarga posture, and we have again kneeling devotees over here in the projections, pedestal projections. Okay, it is in a very bad condition, and we also see two Tirthankar images. One is over here, and I think one is probably lost. It is supposed to be the Dvitirthika image of Tirthankar. Okay, and these are not a very huge images like the previous one. This one is of Rishabhnath. It is again from the same region, but it is Panch Tirthaka representation of Rishabhnath. Okay, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and this is 5. Hence Panch Tirthaka image. And this is also in a very bad condition. But apparently, this particular image is worshipped as Shiva Thakur in one of the temples over there. So this is also a common phenomena of worshipping various such images in the name of Bhaironath, Shiv Thakur, or village deity for that matter throughout this belt. This is a common phenomena that we see throughout the region. Then this particular image is from Pabra Pahadi. This is also from the ancient Manbhum region. And again, it is Panch Tirthaka image of Rishabhnath. We have the Vidyadhars depicted, Chauri bearers. This is also a very small sculpture, not as big as the earlier ones. And this one is of Chandra Prabha. You can very clearly see the representation of crescent moon over here. Then you have devotees. It is a Chaubisi style image of Chandra Prabha that we see here. Okay, and there are other sites also from where we come to know about we come across various Tirthankar images. There are various other sites as well, like Chara. Then we have Pakbira. Then we have Palma, Dyul Ghata. So there are a lot of sites in this region that speaks in itself about the Jain's rich Jain sculptural remains. Now, this slide on the screen is of particular importance. Okay, this is a representation of Mahavira. And what is unique about this particular imagery is the representation of Dikpalas. Okay, here you see, these are not Navgrahas. These are, or the Ashtgrahas representation. These are Dikpala images or the guardian deities. Okay, so the representation of Dikpalas is found in few of the sculptures that have been found from this region. Okay, and always these Dikpalas are obviously shown subservient to the Tirthankar. Excuse me. Okay, so when we talk about the Dikpalas, they are the protectors or the guardians of the various quarters. So we have Indra. Okay, Indra, who is the protector of the eastern quarters. Then we have Agni, who is the Indra is the guardian of the eastern quarters. Then we have Agni of the southeastern region. Just a second. Okay, then we have Yam, who is the protector of the southern region. Then we have Vayu protecting the northwest corner. We have Kuber protecting the northern regions, and so on and so forth. Okay, so two such images has been found from the area of research, from the region that we are looking at. So this one is from the Purulia district and is now in Berlin, actually, not in India. So here you see the representation of Ashtadikpalas, and they are on their vahans. Like we have Indra on elephant, and it is Airavat who's referred, the elephant is called Airavat and holding a thunderbolt in his hand. Then we have other Ashtadikpalas are also being beautifully represented. And here you can see the representation. We have Indra followed by Yam, Varun, Kuber, and so on and so forth. And this particular images of Mahavir, we have a lion over here who is the cognizance of Mahavir. Okay, and the other representations are like the previous ones only. We have the Ashtadikpalas, the Chauri bearers over here. We have Vidyadhar images. We have the trilinear Chhatra and the Sirsha Chakra, the throne, and then the pedestal with kneeling devotees. Okay, and then we have this other sculptural remain. One is this sculpture, and then these are two architectural fragments. So this is of Chandraprabha from the region of Purulia district again. So apparently this particular sculpture is no longer found, is found now. It is lost. Okay, so we have only this photograph of this sculpture, and it is in a very bad condition, and it is very difficult to make out the details of the back slab or the pedestal. But the reporting that has been done by previous scholars is goes that these are the representation of Ashtadikpalas over here, and then we have the usual pedestal representation. Now, for someone who is not aware of the iconography, can very easily confuse with this image of being that of a Buddha. Okay, but as I already talked about how the representation of the various cognizances in the pedestal actually makes one is able to understand as to which Tirthankar is being represented. And again, here the Tirthankar is not in the usual Kayotsarga posture. Here he's in Dhyanasana with the folded legs. Okay, so moving on to these two cultural fragments that we find from this region. Here we have the Grahas being represented, and here we have the Dikpala representation. Okay, so but the details cannot be made out because of the very bad condition of the photograph, and we do not find this in situ these images from the fine spot, no longer present at the fine spot. Okay. Another important, very important actually, is these metallic representations of Tirthankars, which is again from East Singhbhum region and currently placed in Ranchi Museum. These are the representation of 8 Tirthankars, जिसमें से 3 ऋषभनाथ हैं, एक महावीर है, एक चंद्रप्रभा है, और एक आइडेंटिफाई नहीं किया जा सकता है. These are again the 7 are standing in Kayotsarga posture. The pedestal is hollow from the inside. It is obviously made up of a bronze representation of the Tirthankars, and you know that these 3 are Rishabhnath because of the hair locks falling on the shoulder. ओके, सो अगर हम ब्रॉन्ज स्कल्पचर्स की बात करें तो अभी तक सिर्फ यही 8 है जिनके बारे में मैं जानती हूँ. आई विल नॉट डिस्कस इन डिटेल अबाउट दीज स्कल्पचर्स बिकॉज आई एम येट टू स्टडी द वेरियस iconographic aspect of these particular images, but I thought that it was worth mentioning the presence of these bronze sculptures from this region, and these 8. And as far as I know, there are certain inscriptions also at the base of the pedestals which have not been actually read till date. Okay, so so this is one of the few important representations from the region. Now, here on the screen are the representation of Yaksha and Yakshi figures. So this one over here is my favorite because I find it very beautiful, though the face has been destroyed, but I really find it beautiful. Okay, so this particular image is from Ichhagad. Ichhagad is now in Jharkhand. Okay, so you see a male and a female depiction. Okay, they are sitting in Ardha Paryang asana. That is, one leg is folded and one falls down and is supported by lotus over here. Okay, so when you look at this particular imagery, you see that they are holding some sort of flower over here, and then they have child, because the usual representation of Yakshi image goes like that. So here they are holding a child. Now, it's not that Yaksha and Yakshis were only associated with Jain iconography. Okay, so how do we know again that this is a Yaksha Yakshi representation associated with Jainism? Because we here have the representation of a Jinnah at the top of the back slab. Okay, and we have 2 elephants over here, which probably testifies that this is Ajit Nath, because Ajit Nath का जो चिन्ह है वो elephant है. So probably this image is of Ajit Nath, and hence the Yaksha Yakshi are the Mahayaksha and Ajit Bala. Okay, so we can we can infer from this particular thing that this Yaksha Yakshi is associated with Ajit Nag. Fine. Now, the most interesting is again the pedestal portion over here. So we see an elephant and someone is riding the elephant. Then we have kneeling devotees, and again here we have a person with a mukut and standing. Probably, I don't know. It's not very clear, and some kind of narration is being made over here. Probably, I'm not sure what narration is being made over here, but we do not find such a representation from this region. So it will be an important. Important aspect of Jain iconography, if I'm able to study the pedestal of this particular image. And also interesting is this particular figure over here standing over a snake. Okay, so here we have a child probably standing on a snake. So I'm not sure about this part also. Maybe over the time I'll be able to understand the image properly. Then again here we have a Yaksha Yakshi image here. The Jinnah is completely destroyed. The face has been removed from that of Yaksha. Then we have the representation in the pedestal also. Okay, so these two, it's not that only these two sculptures are present. I am citing here the few examples of Yaksha Yakshi representation from this region. Okay, so hence these two sculptures. Now,
yeah, Nikita, one question. What is the one question. What is the figure in the middle of the sculpture between the Yaksha and Yakshi in both the images? Is it a tree or what?
Yeah, it is a tree over here. It is a depiction of a tree. In usual representation of Yaksha Yakshi, you'll find this representation of these trees. Okay.
Yeah, it is very similar to some kind of a Sheshnag figure in both the images.
No, this is a tree. Most certainly, this is a tree over here. Okay, it is not a Sheshnag thing over here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'll talk a little about the Chaumukha representations from the region, or the votive duels. So here on the screen, you can see the 4 types of Chaumukha representation. This is from the Pakwira region of Purulia. And we've come across these votive duels in large number from this region. Okay, I have picked up a few just to give you an idea of the types of Chaumukha remains from this particular region. So when you look at the Chaumukha at first instance, it is the miniature representation of a temple. As you can see over here, that it is being worshipped. Okay, so we have this tika laga ke rakha hai because they worship these particular thing. So here we have the Pidha dual representation of a temple. We have Amlak, and probably the Kalash part is lost. We have the representation of Tirthankars on all the 4 sides. Okay, hence Chaumukha. Again, here we have this Pidha dual style. Then we have this perforated. Here we have 3 Pidhas. Here we have 2. Again, there's an Amlak representation. Here the Tirthankar is in the Dhyanasan mudra. Then we have this perforated level also in this particular Chaumukha representation. Here we have the Rekha dual style representation. Okay, so in this region, you will find both type of temples, be it the Pidha dual or the Rekha dual. Okay, and they have close affinity with the Odishan style of temple architecture. I have not discussed about the temple architecture in this session because it will then be the session will go very long. Hence, I've just stick to the iconography part. So here we have the Chaumukha that is represented like the Rekha dual style, and the unique is the representation of these Tirthankars on all the 4 sides. Here you have 3 followed by 2, and then the single Tirthankar over here. So the idea of creating these Chaumukhas were auspicious from all the sides, and those who could not actually make temples led to the making of these Chaumukhas and the worshipping. And at times we also find small inscriptions, donative inscriptions at the base of these Chaumukhas, wherein they talk about Danapati and the name followed by the name, that it has been donated by this particular person to this place that is these aspects actually point to the presentation, to the presence of monastic system during this period. Okay, so these are the few things that actually point us towards the present of monastic settlement in this particular region, or maybe the ancient Manbhum region that I have been constantly referring to. Again, we have here the similar representation of the Chaumukha from the Chara region of Purulia district. Here you see few sculptural remains. Okay, then here we come across certain more Chaumukhas from the region. I'll not go into the details because I think we are running short of time. So this is another few representations. Now, as I was talking about loose sculptures, okay, so this is one such example from Purulia district again, wherein all the sculptures found here and there are actually clubbed together and placed under temporary sheds or a concrete structure created by the local people, and all have been placed over there. So these are the sculptural remains scattered throughout the length and breadth of this particular region, and a study of probably at least one can try to study all the sculptural remains, will actually give an insight into the early medieval iconographic style of this region. Obviously, it had bearing from the South Bihar plain, then Central Indian influence is also very much evidence in this region. So we could get a insight into this the iconographic style of this region. Okay, now having spoken about all these things, now I'll go into I'll contextualize these images. Okay, so it becomes very important, having discussed all the images, it is very important to contextualize them. So जब हम छोटा नागपुर की बात करते हैं, पर्टिकुलरली उसमें झारखंड की बात करते हैं, तो मैंने पहले भी बताया कि पार्श्वनाथ हिल जो कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पिलग्रिम स्पॉट है, जिसको समेद शिखर या शिखरजी नाम से भी जाना जाता है. सो द प्रेजेंस ऑफ दिस पिलग्रिम स्पॉट, एंड देयर इज वन मोर साइट, कोलुहा district in the Koluha Hill in the Chatra district of Jharkhand. Okay, that is also a very important place, and various scholars have pointed out that this might have been one of the important pilgrim spots earlier. अभी तो वो कौलेश्वरी देवी टेम्पल के नाम से जाना जाता है, वहां पे काली की पूजा की जाती है, but throughout the length and breadth of the region we find huge sculptural remains, and at the Koluha Hill itself we have the representation of 24 Tirthankars. Okay, so it becomes very important to actually understand this, understand or study the sculptural remains of this particular region, and this was very important place is very becomes very evident. Now, there are certain texts which talk about like the Kalpa Sutra and the Acharang Sutra actually talk about the extensive travels of Mahavira throughout the Eastern Indian region before and after his enlightenment. And there are certain Buddhist texts also talking about the presence of Jainism in the Bengal region of India. Now, there are few votive diols also present in this region, which have inscriptions, जिसपे हम दानपति और followed by the name देखते हैं. Then we have Duluri inscription, wherein the inscription talks about a युवराज. Then एक बोरम जगह है, वहां से भी हमें एक inscription मिलता है जो राजा के बारे में बात करते हैं. Okay, so all these things actually point towards the political setup also. If we look at these Duluri inscription or the Boram inscription, it is generally believed that because जो झारखंड का एरिया था या फिर जो छोटा नागपुर रीजन था, वो कोड एरिया नहीं था कि जहां पे कोई एक रीजनल डायनेस्टी प्रॉस्पर कर रही हो. दीज वर द मार्जिनल और द पेरिफेरल एरियाज. ओके, एंड पेट्रोनेज जो दिया जा रहा था वो रीजनल डायनेस्टी, चाहे वो उड़ीसा में हो, चाहे भांज हो या पालसेना हो, ये लोग पेट्रोनेज प्रोवाइड कर रहे थे इन सब रीजन्स में. और इसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा था, जो लोकल ट्राइबल चीफ्स थे, दे एक्चुअली रोज टू द लेवल ऑफ लोकल राजाज. ओके, सो इसी hence we have Yuvraj being talked about in the inscriptions. Okay, so is तरीके
Nikita,
का okay, so I was talking about the political setup. So because this was not the core area, we see how it becomes because of these inscriptions. I'll then again talk about there's one more inscription in the Hazaribagh district, the Dudapani rock inscription, which talks about the land grants, which talks about the movement of the merchant brothers from the length from Ayodhya to Tamralipti. So it eventually gives an understanding of how the political setup might have been during in this region during the early medieval period. Okay.
yes,
Okay, so
Nikita, it is visible. It is visible.
setup of this region. Okay, so the inscriptions that we find from this region actually points to the setup in which the tribal chiefs or local chiefs might have risen to the position of local rajas because of the patronage from the adjoining regions, and hence we see the reference of Yuvraj or and such references in the inscriptions from the region. We do not have a very detailed inscription except from the Dudpani rock inscription, wherein it talks about the traveling of three merchant brothers from Ayodhya to Tamralipti from the ChottaNagpur region. Okay, and how these merchant brothers were actually granted villages by a Raja Adi Simha, who is probably some post-Gupta ruler from this region, according to the scholars. Okay, so how the three brothers were actually granted villages, we find references to in the Dudpani rock inscription from Hazaribagh district. Now, this inscription also points to the fact that this particular region was very much connected with the south plains of Bihar and the delta region of Bengal. And there was connectivity via the Subarnarekha river. So it flows throughout the Jharkhand area and drains into West Bengal. So most of the sites that we come across in this region is by the sides of this, on the banks of this river or on the tributaries that join the Subarnarekha river. And because of and also there is one more reason that ChottaNagpur was probably the resource base. So we all know about the Rajmahal Hill area being very rich in resources, okay, the mineral resources. So most certainly this particular area was the quarry for these sculptures that we were being made, because all the stone sculptures that we find in the Bihar region or in Bengal region are all similar in their composition. Okay, and also the bronze sculptures that are being found were mostly from the regions of Hazaribagh and Singh, because all the metallurgical activities are found in this particular region. So this particular part was very much actively involved during the early medieval period. At least these instances point in that direction. Okay, so ChottaNagpur, and if we study the iconography, I'm very certain, and various other scholars also point out, that a certain regional identity will evolve, wherein it is an amalgamation of the Central Indian architecture. Also, from the South Bihar plain, the Palasena influence is very much evidence. So there is a dire need of studying the sculptural remains of this particular region in great detail. Okay, so with this, I think I'll end my presentation, and thank you, and we can go ahead with the question answer.
Thank you so much, Nikita, for this very interesting presentation. It's really interesting. You started your discussion with a very micro analysis of the visual images, and you discussed all the small elements which we would have either missed or could not understand, like that रत्न पत्र, वो हमारा ध्यान में भी नहीं आता कि क्या चीज है, but you explained its relevance, and all those small elements, be it the Navagraha, the Dikpal, the monks, the Pratihar, and everything. So it was really fascinating, and the way you contextualized everything, be it the votive stupa, the way artistic influences were transversing the regional identities of the region vis-a-vis the interactions with central India and this whole region of ChottaNagpur. So it was really, I would say, very interesting lecture. I
Thank you.
personally had, I I personally have some questions. I say many questions,
Yeah,
and
okay.
there are many questions on chat box, so we can start with them.
Yeah,
So,
surely.
yeah, so one thing you mentioned about the patronage of these visual art. So if just I want your clarification. We have evidences of these visual images being patronized by merchants and by also the local chieftains.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And you mentioned about the votive images and how they acted the purpose of the people who can't make full temples.
Mhm.
So it helped. But do you think this votive Deola had some kind of origins with the votive stupa which were prevalent in Buddhism?
Yeah, actually, a very good question. So, obviously, there's an influence because we find the presence of this votive duels. The earliest, if we talk about, is from Mathura region, from where we find the representation, be it votive stupa or the Chaumukha images associated with Jain imagery. So definitely there is a link, and probably those who were coming from far off places, it could have been a sort of souvenir sort of a thing that was carried by these people. Like if we talk about Buddhist monastic arrangements in Rajgir or Nalanda, we come across a lot of such votive representations. We have the name of Danapati, and from the places that they are coming, and they are visiting these places. But unfortunately, in this region, we only have the names, maybe because of the lack of the space. And I'd like to point out also that this particular region, the literary tradition that we find is almost missing in this particular region. It is a tribal area that we are looking at. Okay, it is it is a very aloof from other activities that is going on in the surrounding. People here are visiting, they have these votive duels, उतना ही उनके पास रिसोर्सेज है कि वो उसको ही स्थापना कर सके, उसकी पूजा कर सके या उसको डोनेट कर सके. So I understand it in this way, and obviously a detailed analysis will further make the picture more clear. Yeah.
Yes, it's very interesting. And ये जो votive है, these are of 9th, 10th century, right?
Yeah. Most of the
Yeah.
sculptures are from 9th, 10th century, extending up to 12th century. Yeah.
Right. So this was of the time we had Pal and Senas who were Buddhist,
Yeah.
and in their
General
domain we
Buddhist
had this.
influence.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have one more question. So when you mentioned about the images and there were certain shared traditions with the art of Central India and also of other regions of subcontinent. Like for example, you mentioned about the images of acharyas and upadhyayas, which we also know in other regions
Yeah.
of, like for example. But you also mentioned about dikpals, which are not very common in other regions. So if for a layman who wants to know about certain peculiar features of the Jain art of the region, what do you think can be the peculiar features of the Jain art of the ChottaNagpur region? Or yeah, and the second part of the thing is, do we find certain Hindu influences in the Jain images of the region, or kind of an interaction between the Hindu images and the Jain images of the region?
Okay, so if I talk about certain peculiarities, as I said, there are borrowed, there is sharing. So the representation of Jain acharyas, as I mentioned, was very much prevalent in the Deoghar region of Madhya Pradesh. We find the representation of acharyas and monks in a few sculptures, not all of them, okay, which have been reported from the site. So I cannot say with certainty whether it was very much peculiar to this region ki sirf yahi mil raha, because we do not have much examples. Then what is with most certainty I can say is the representation of Navgrahas. Okay, so you mostly in all the sculptural remains, the bigger ones, you find the representation of Navgrahas. And Dikpalas ka bhi utna zyada representation, we have only few examples of the representation of Dikpals. Maybe we need to look deeper, we need to dig deeper in order to understand the representation of Dikpalas in this region. And talking about the Brahmanic influence, so Navgraha ka jo representation hai, pehle hum dekhte hain Brahmanic deities mein hota hai from 6th century. Then we move on to Jain iconography, 7th 8th century se हमें नवग्रह का representation दिखता है. So इस तरीके की borrowings हैं जो थोड़ी बहुत हमें देखने को मिलती है. For that matter, दिक्पाल जो guardian deities है, वो भी हिंदू imagery में, Brahmanic imagery में हमें देखने को मिलता है. And similarly, we find a reflection in the Jain iconography as well from this.
Someone from the audience may have to mute their mic because it may disturb the speaker. Shri Kavita Z. Philip, can you please mute your earphone? I think we have to continue in this way only. So, it was a very interesting reply, Nikita. And there is one question on the language and the script of the inscription.
Hello, Anchit. Hello, Anchit.
Hello.
You can mute her. You can mute them from your side.
You can mute her.
Soumya, you have to do this because I don't have this control.
Can the host mute this?
Soumya,
Can you remove
Soumya, you have to Shri Kavita Z. Philip.
கூட்டு போயிடலாம் மாட்டீங்களா கார் தாங்க என்ன பெட்ரோல் கேஸ் தாங்க நான் ஓட்டு போறேன் நீங்க அடி சண்டை ஃப்ரீயா அடி சண்டை ஃப்ரீயா
Anchit, you can mute
Srina,
her as admin. You are admin.
I don't have this control.
I think admin can mute.
Admin is Soumya, she has to do it. Soumya, can you please mute?
Soumya is mute. Soumya can mute her. Okay.
Please everything source connect கூட்டு போயிடலாம் மாட்டீங்களா கடைசியா இவ்வளவு சாரி அதுக்கு என்ன பஸ்ல போகணும் கூட எனக்கு தெரியாது.
We can put a text message. A chat.
Yes, சொல்லுங்களா? அப்ப கார் தாங்க நான் பெட்ரோல் போட்டு எடுத்துட்டு போறேன்.
Trying to contact
லைசென்ஸ் நான் போயிட்டேன். ஆனா கார் வர நானும் வர மாட்டேன்.
Just try to contact her.
Saurabh, can you call Soumya?
I've texted her. I think she will remove her.
I think there is silence now, and we can now continue with the question.
Yeah.
So, Nikita, sorry for this thing.
No problem.
There is one question regarding the language and the script of the inscriptions.
Yeah, so most of the inscriptions are in Gaudi script, a corrupt form of Sanskrit that are found in this region. The short inscriptions that we have, the pedestal inscriptions of the votive duels or the sculptures as well. Yeah, so I'm not a expert in that field. So whatever I have gathered is from the secondary sources, obviously, but I'll eventually try in my research to understand that as well. Yeah.
I mean, I personally have more questions of my own, but I would rather give all time to the audience.
Yeah.
There's one question from
Hello.
yes.
Anchit, if I may, I would like to answer that question
Yeah, please.
regarding a script. So it is early Nagri. Early Nagri script is present in those early medieval sculpture in this region, in most cases.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you,
your
Ajit.
valuable comments. We have one question from Devajit Ghosh. He asks, how do you think we can approach the understanding of settlement patterns of the early medieval period in the region? Because all these architectural and sculptural remains could not have been formed without exclusive human activities. So how
Yeah.
can we reconstruct the broader cluster of human settlement of this region through a holistic understanding of their day-to-day lives? He adds, broadly, I want to know the possibilities of decoding the settlement archaeology in this region.
Okay, so as I mentioned that about the Subarnarekha River and how the presence of these cultural remains are mostly on the sides of the river, on the river banks or tributaries associated with this particular river. Okay, and the major rivers, if we move into Bengal, I'm sticking to the Jharkhand river, which is the Subarnarekha river. So you can understand the settlement pattern through the presence of these cultural remains, and also because it is believed that they were being transported via these waterways, inland water routes. Hence, the settlement pattern or the development of these monastic settlements would have been around in and around these rivers and its tributaries. So that is my general idea as of now of the settlement pattern or the settlement archaeology of this particular region. And it will require a little bit of ethno-archaeological approach, which I'm looking forward to in my research. As I said, it is an introduction, so we'll definitely sometime in future get back with more understanding of this region and the Jain art of this region.
Thank you, Nikita. And I know you have much interest in ethnography. So
Yeah.
there was one question related which I got on WhatsApp. This question is on the modern community which can be related to Jainism. The Shavak or Sharaf is something like this.
Sarak community of
Sarak.
this region.
So can you
Yeah.
tell something about them and their perception of the Jain images?
Okay, so we have this community which goes by name Sarak, which is a corrupt form of Shravak or Shravika, as in the lay followers. Okay, so this particular community, they're not huge in number. Okay, but the lifestyle that they follow in this region are very much similar to a Jain follower or somebody who is into Jainism, who follows the Jain religion. So they have a very similar lifestyle, and at most of these places we come across these people actually trying to preserve the remains or construction of the new temples and placement of the these sculptures in the new modern constructed temples in this region. And ये जो सरक community है, मैंने बहुत little bit of interaction हुआ है मेरा अभी तक, but I am trying to actually get into the details, because ऐसा बोलते हैं कि ये लोग अपने आप को जैन भी consider नहीं करते हैं completely. They don't associate themselves with the Jain religion. But if you look at their lifestyle and everything that they follow is very similar to Jainism. And these community were also very much मेटलर्जिकल एक्टिविटी जो रीजन में है वो इनसे एसोसिएटेड है, सरक कम्युनिटी से, असुर कम्युनिटी से, भूमिज कम्युनिटी से. तो ये कुछ ऐसी कम्युनिटीज हैं जो मेटलर्जिकल एक्टिविटीज से एसोसिएटेड है. तो बहुत ज्यादा चांसेस है दैट दे आर डायरेक्टली एसोसिएटेड, और बिकॉज दे हैव बीन इन दिस रीजन फॉर द लॉन्गेस्ट टाइम्स, सो दे माइट हैव बीन वेरी मच कनेक्टेड विद द establishment and the growth of Jainism in this area. Yeah.
Very interesting. Years back, I heard one report or some article that one particular Jain, Digambar Jain monk, he was trying to have certain communications with this community. I'm not sure of the results, but your research may bring this thing out more, like how the modern monastic community are interacting with this Shravak, this derivative of Shravak.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have various instances also कि कुछ ऐसे regions हैं जैसे जैसे अगर हम गिरिडीह डिस्ट्रिक्ट की बात कर रहे हैं तो वहां पे कुछ ऐसे स्कल्पचर्स हैं जो मिले हैं जिनको म्यूजियम में रख दिया गया। तो वहां के जो लोकल जैन फॉलोअर्स हैं उन्होंने अर्जी डाली कि इनको उनको टेम्पल में प्रिजर्व करने देना चाहिए। एंड ये मेरा बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट भी है एक मेरे रिसर्च का, living antiquarianism, wherein I try to understand how these past sculptures are actually perceived by the community in the present and how they are perceived and they are preserved at the same time. Okay, so नैनजूत लाहिरी बहुत एक इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्सेप्ट के साथ आती है लिविंग एंटिक्वेरियनिज्म, कि कैसे हमें इस जो कंजर्वेशन प्रैक्टिस है इसको भी एक्नॉलेज करना चाहिए अपार्ट फ्रॉम द कंजर्वेशन जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल फॉर्मेट है, कि कैसे इन पास्ट रिमेन्स को परसीव कर रही है सोसाइटी, उनको कैसे प्रेजेंट में इनकॉर्पोरेट किया जा रहा है और कैसे एक मीनिंग दिया जा रहा है मटेरियल कल्चर को इन द प्रेजेंट स्टेट.
Very interesting. Like, I'm so excited for your research. It's very interesting. There is one more question by Asim Khwaja. He asked about the Pancharatha. You mentioned about the when you asked about the images and when you were mentioning about the pedestal, you used the word Pancharatha. So he asks about their terminology.
Okay, जो पंचरथ पेडेस्टल होता है, as I showed there were 5 projections, hence पंच. ओके, सो जब हम टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर की बात करते हैं तो या तो जब हम टेम्पल, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट डेल्ट विद टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर ओवर हियर, सो मैं थोड़ा सा एलैबोरेट करती हूँ कि जब टेम्पल का बेस प्लान होता है तो या तो वो त्रिरथा होता है यानी 3 प्रोजेक्शंस होते हैं, या पंचरथा होता है यानी 5 प्रोजेक्शंस होते हैं, एट द बेस इज क्रिएटेड. ओके, या फिर सप्तरथा होते हैं. तो यहाँ पे ज्यादातर इमेजेस जो हमें मिलते हैं उनका जो बेस है उस पे 5 प्रोजेक्शंस देखने को मिलते हैं. ओके, सो one is the central projection and 2 on the either side. Hence, it is referred to as the Panchratha pedestal. Okay, I can only elaborate if I had a temple base plan, but I cannot do it. Okay, the Rath denote movement. So how do I answer that? Basically, in the temple टेम्पल कंस्ट्रक्शन का जो लैंग्वेज है उसमें इन प्रोजेक्शंस को रथ की तरह बोला गया क्योंकि वो 5 रथ 5 डायरेक्शन से वो निकल रहे हैं. मे बी दैट कुड हैव बीन द इम्प्लीकेशन. ओके, दे आर मूविंग फॉरवर्ड फ्रॉम 3 डायरेक्शंस, फ्रॉम 5 डायरेक्शंस. ओके, सो मेरा यही अंडरस्टैंडिंग है दैट कुड हैव बीन द रीजन ऑफ यूजिंग द टर्म रथ. इफ समबडी कुड करेक्ट मी, इफ समवन हैज मोर नॉलेज ऑन दिस एस्पेक्ट, कुड certainly enlighten.
Definitely, it is this projections which is used in architectural treatise for.
They move outwards. Okay, these on the walls of the temple, they move outwards. Hence, I think the Rath.
Hello.
Yeah, Aditya ji.
Hello.
You want? Hello.
Yes. मैं कुछ समय लूंगा. Because I have a request and I have something to ask and something to add actually.
Yes.
So my request is I would like to ask Nikita that if she could share her previous work, like you said about her MPhil work or something, whatever she has done in ChottaNagpur region. So if she could share her email ID, I can email her back.
Okay, surely.
Okay, and I have one question. Like हम बार बात आ रही थी नवग्रहास की, बट अर्लियर जब हम लोग स्कल्पचर देख रहे थे सो उसमें सो उसमें 8 ही हैं. So why 8? Is there any? No, let me finish. Is there anything regarding that in Jaina literature that 8 are prominent only and 9 shouldn't be represented, something like that?
ओके, सो जब हम नवग्रह की बात करते हैं तो नवग्रह रिप्रेजेंटेशन भी मिलता है हमें ब्राह्मणिकल डीटीज में. ओके, और अष्टग्रह भी मिलता है. आई थिंक मोस्ट प्रोबेबली द रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ अष्टग्रह वाज प्रोबेबली टू मेंटेन द सिमेट्री. केतु इज यूजुअली नॉट डिपिक्टेड. in my understanding, that is the reason why Ashtagrahas are represented usually in the iconography of various images in order to maintain the symmetry. Okay, because मैंने एक आपको image दिखाया था जिसमें इंद्र represented थे, जबकि we had the Ashtagrahas, क्योंकि वहाँ पे शायद जगह की कमी थी and उनको वो symmetry maintain करना था, तो उन्होंने इंद्र, because Indra is often associated with Jain iconography, so he has been inserted in that particular imagery. So in my understanding, it is probably to maintain the symmetry. And also about the reference in Jain literature, I'm sorry, I cannot mention, I do not remember from the literary evidences. I'll definitely look up and let you know if we get in touch via email. Okay.
Okay, and I have something to add. Like you said, Bahraguna se jo bronze image hai, those are only image, but there are bronze images from Aluwara. It is in Bokaro.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. मेरे को पता नहीं था अभी तक.
These images are in Patna Museum.
Patna Museum. Okay. Okay, I'll definitely look up for those images. Thank you so much, Aditya.
So, okay, are you sharing your email ID in chat box?
Yeah, okay, I can do that.
Okay, so
should I do it now or
should we can now wind up our session. So thank you so much, Nikita, for accepting our this thing and for giving this so wonderful presentation.
It was a wonderful experience for me as well, getting to share my area from my area of research. Yeah.
And the kind of questions which are coming and they were coming in the between the session also, and also so people had interest, and we have some great comments for your fantastic presentation. Someone has said much appreciated, amazing presentation, wonderful presentation. So indeed, it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you everyone for joining this session. Thank you, Soumya, for managing everything and recording the session. And thank you everyone. Please continue to join the future sessions. Please follow our page, Instagram page, Ancient Jainism. You can, the video of the lecture will be soon uploaded on YouTube, and you can share with your friends and colleagues. And thank you so much for joining. Wish you a very good, wish you a happy good, wish you good night. Festival mood gaya nahi hai.
Thank you everyone for joining in and patiently watching my presentation. Thank you.
It was indeed interesting. Tab sabne itna patiently dekha. Thank you so much, Nikita.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you everyone.
I'm leaving. Okay.
Yeah, we all can leave. Thank you so much.